Can you talk to us a little bit about your leadership philosophy? Like when you go into an organization in a leadership role, we're not taught leadership as civil engineers, right? We're taught calculations and reports and all kinds of things. But tell us about your leadership philosophy and how that came about, being that you're a technical professional by background.
We as individuals, and particularly as professionals, we are always ready to learn. My leadership, if you want to call it style or philosophy, has evolved over time. In each instances, there are a lot of learnings that makes you grow. And what I have learned.
Welcome to this very special episode 300 of the Civil Engineering Podcast. We are truly grateful to have reached this milestone, and it wouldn't have been possible without you, our listeners. For almost a decade, this podcast has been dedicated to helping civil engineering professionals succeed in work and life, and today we're honored to share a very special episode with you. To mark this occasion, we have an extraordinary guest joining us today, Dr. Feniosky Peña-Mora. Dr. Peña-Mora was the AEC National President. He literally just transitioned a few days ago to be the past president of AEC, and he is also the National Dean of the School of Engineering and Sciences at Tecnológico de Monterrey. Dr. Peña-Mora is going to talk about his leadership philosophy and how his upbringing in the Dominican Republic and then his coming to the U.S. really shaped him in his leadership. He'll talk about ASCE and all the opportunities available to you as civil engineers through ASCE, a wonderful organization. He's also going to talk about just where civil engineering is going in this world and how we need to adapt the education and some of the skill sets that we are embracing for civil engineers going forward. So if you want to understand where civil engineering is heading and how you can be part of creating meaningful solutions, this conversation is for you. Now, before we jump in, I do want to tell you about our AEC PM Connect event, an interactive experience where civil engineers can sharpen their project management skills through real-world sessions and topics, such as earned value, AI in project management, and even risk management. Our next event will be June 10th, 2026 at Forest Gate Country Club in New Jersey. Visit aecpmconnect.com and register today. I'm your host, Anthony Pisano, and this is the Civil Engineering Podcast, the industry's leading show for civil engineering professionals, ranked as the #1 civil engineering podcast by FeedSpot. All right, so now I'd like to welcome our guest onto the show for today. Dr. Feniosky Peña-Mora was the ASCE National President, now the past president, just as recently a few days ago, the past national president. He's also the National Dean of the School of Engineering and Sciences at Tecnológico de Monterrey. So, Dr. Peña-Mora, welcome to the Civil Engineering Podcast.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me. Such a pleasure to be able to talk to you today.
Happy to have you. So maybe you can start off by just taking us through your career journey from your roots in the Dominican Republic to becoming the Dean of the School of Engineering there.
Well, that is an interesting.
I know it's a long career, but just maybe give us an overview.
I will give you an overview very quickly. Well, I started my career in Dominican Republic where I did my bachelor's in civil engineering, but then migrated to the United States. And by the way, I did not speak any English, so I have to learn the language, the culture. And I was fortunate enough that there were quite a few programs in New York City that allows me to learn the language enough to be able to pass the exam to go to MIT. And there I was fortunate also to stay as a faculty member after I finished my PhD. And then in 2003, I moved to Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, where I was able to start my path in academic leadership. I was an associate provost in charge of entrepreneurship, interdisciplinarity, and diversity. Then I moved to Colombia in 2009, where I became the Dean of Engineering and Applied Sciences. And after that, I had the fortune to be appointed as commissioner of the Department of Design and Construction in New York City that is responsible for all the public works projects. For example, if you go to Times Square, that was completed during my time as a commissioner. So that was a very interesting project to complete, as you can imagine. And now I'm here in Tec de Monterrey in Mexico as the Dean of Engineering and Applied Sciences. I just concluded a year of being also the Vice President for Research.
Wow. So you had a full and very exciting career as a civil engineer, and you made history as the first Hispanic national president of ASCE. Talk a little bit about what that means to you, and kind of just from a leadership perspective, that must have been really exciting.
Indeed, it was. And actually, having, in one sense, people will think fortunate. In others, it's like, wow, in 2025, we're still talking about first for Latinos. That's also an interesting concept to grasp. But I was also the first Latino to be Dean of Engineering at Columbia. And I was also the first Latino to be Commissioner of the Department of Design and Construction in New York City. So quite a few firsts, but as I said, that we are in 2025 and we're still asking and being able to celebrate those firsts. But I can tell you that as ASE president, it was very meaningful to me. ASE has been my home. My family since 1990, when I was a fresh graduate student at MIT that was trying to find my way in kind of a new culture, new way of working. And I found ASE at that time. The way that I connected to ASE was with the Boston Society of Civil Engineers, which is the section of ASE in Boston. And since then, I have been involved in all different aspects, including being the chair of the Industry Leaders Council, being able to organize conferences, be able to lead kind of committees on research and construction. So you can imagine that being elected by my peers to be the president globally of AEC was very meaningful. And my goal and my vision was how to ensure that we can look at ASE as that integrated organization that supports the profession, supports the society and the communities, and it has a positive impact into what we have to do. So again, it was very rewarding, very humbling experience being able to meet with members all around the country and globally, which actually allowed me to get a better sense of the needs that we have as a profession. For example, in the summer, my presidential trip was to Nigeria, and to be able to visit with our members and see what they were doing, the impact that they were having was very meaningful. I also had a chance to go to India and meet with colleagues there, Colombia and Panama. So multiple places. We are all over 170 countries, 160,000 members.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, listen, I think that first of all, ASCE is a wonderful organization. I've been a member for a long time, and I think the national presidency is such a great position because you do get to get a real feel for civil engineering globally, which is amazing, and it's such an important profession. And Dr. Peña-Mora, what I'd love to hear from you about is you've had a lot of leadership positions. You just kind of went through a bunch of them for us. Can you talk to us a little bit about your leadership philosophy? Like when you go into an organization in a leadership role, we're not taught leadership as civil engineers, right? We're taught calculations and reports and all kinds of things. But tell us about your leadership philosophy and how that came about, being that you're a technical professional by background.
Thank you, Anthony. This is a really good question. As you can imagine, we as individuals, and particularly as professionals, we are always ready to learn. We're always trying to understand the situation that we are in, the challenges that we need to address, and really always trying to see how we can do the best. And as you can imagine, my leadership, if you want to call it style or philosophy, has evolved over time. And I will tell you that in each instances there are a lot of learnings received from interactions, from actions that you take, from decisions that you make that makes you grow. And what I have learned throughout the years is that listening is a very, very important skill, as well as a North Star to follow. As you can imagine, as one individual, you cannot have all the perspective of everything that is happening. You need to be able to understand what is the important issues and what are the major challenges that a particular organization is having. So my philosophy is very much anchored in listening to the members of the organization, understanding the needs, the wants, the desires, to understand the solutions that they provide and that they bring to the table, and see how we can all come together to address those challenges and identify the best way to put forward. So I will focus that notion of listening and ensuring that everybody has a very safe space to express themselves, express their opinions, express their thoughts, and to be heard. And then a decision has to be made. That's part of leadership. And when that decision is made, at least everybody goes out of the room or the situation saying, I was able to say my piece. I was able to bring my concerns to the table. They were here. There were other factors that were taken into consideration. And those factors may have swayed the decision in a way that I was not the one that I wanted, but at least I can understand it. And so that's what I wanted, that people go to the point that they say, I understand how the decision was made and why it was made. May not have been the one that I wanted, but at least I understand it because they have been listened to.
That's great. I love that. Strong leadership drives strong projects. Become an AEC PM professional and give your team the leadership skills they need to thrive. Customized PM development, premium content, and a leadership edge that sets you apart. Learn more at aecpm.com. Dr. Peña-Mora, you grew up in the Dominican Republic. I know that I saw some of the pieces that ASCE did on you, and your family didn't have a lot financially, but they were very supportive of you. You came to a new country, you had to learn a new language, right? Talk to us about how all of that has kind of shaped you in terms of, again, a leader, and how you try to engage with people, and just I would imagine that all that has really helped you to be able to deal with adversity and challenges, and being flexible in your career. I wonder if you could just talk about how your background has influenced you.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that you mentioned it, and there have been that book, like everything that I needed to learn, I learned in kindergarten. I would say that everything that I need to learn, I have to thank my parents, both my mother and my father, because they were not highly educated. My mother just got up to a fifth grade education. My father got until seventh grade education when I was going through school, and something that I learned from them, my mother said, like, you always have to try it, because if you try and you don't get it, you don't lose anything because you didn't have it in the first place. So that always put my frame of mind that, you should try. You should always try. If it doesn't work out, well, you didn't have that before, so you can try again. And my father was somebody that also emphasized a lot education and perseverance. He will always tell me, like, listen, you have to really get as much education as possible, and there's going to be adversity. And by the way, if something happens, just lick your wounds for a day or two, but by the third day, you better stand up and continue going there. And I will tell you that, as I mentioned, my father only got to seventh grade education, but like around 10 to 12 years ago, I received manila envelope at my house, and it was his diploma, and it was a note.
Wow.
I just want to make sure that my grandkids know that I did finish college. So the issue of perseverance is something that he practiced every day, and he did it. And look now, I was the first one in the family to go to college, and I not only went to college, but I got my PhD. And now my kids, two of them already have PhD in engineering, and the third one is in her third year of PhD in engineering and sciences. So I think that perseverance of him and that message of education and continue pass on to generations. And at the same time, I learned from the interactions with colleagues in all the places that I have been, at Illinois, at MIT, at Columbia, at DDC, at ASE, is that we all don't have to think the same way, and we should value and respect each other, and be able to always try to walk on somebody else's shoes to understand their perspective and how you can incorporate that perspective. And I can tell you that I normally tell students when I give a presentation that they are 6 P that kind of I have used to as a guidance towards, when I wanted to achieve something or my goals or leadership, is you have to have passion because you have to be passionate about what you're doing. You have to have a purpose. So, what do you want to do with that passion? You have to prepare yourself. That means you have to get educated and informed in order to be the decision. But you also have to perspiration. That means you have to work hard. Things are not easy. But when things get hard, you have to persevere. You have to understand that you may not work the first time. You have to try the second time. And the last one, and not the least or any means, is people. You, at the end of the day, a lot of us engineers have gone to engineering because we like to solve problems and we like sometimes to work by ourselves. And we wanted to get into a room, into our desk, and start working until we solve it. But at the end of the day, we need to work in a team. We need to work with other people. Our decisions will affect people. So we better understand that from early on and ensure that as we move forward, we always have that perspective of that at the end of the day, our decisions and our actions will affect others.
That's great. Yeah, I love the 6 Ps. That's great. And I really like what your mom said. You try for something, and if you don't get it, you didn't have it in the first place, right? So
Yeah.
you might as well give it a shot, which I think can be really good, especially for a lot of younger professionals that aren't that confident
Yeah.
yet, right?
Yeah.
And they're a little nervous about taking a shot. But listen, you take a shot, you don't get it, you're kind of back where you were anyway, and you can keep going again,
Yeah,
right? Type of thing.
that,
So
that is true. And let me tell you, my mother, like I said, fifth grade education, but is one of the smartest women that I have ever known.
yeah, no, that's great. So in the world of civil engineering, we're facing a lot of challenges today, right? We've got climate change, urbanization, digital transformation. What are some of the skills and mindsets that are going to be really essential for that next generation of civil engineers to kind of lead us in these kinds of environments?
I think that's an incredibly important question that we are all asking ourselves. I think there is no office in this world where this discussion are not having. Like artificial intelligence is it going to replace the civil engineer? What is it going to do to our business? What is it going to do to our programs in academia? And I go back to the notion that artificial intelligence and digital technologies are all, at the end of the day, tools. And as tools, we need to understand them, understand how to use it, and use it to the best possible way to maximize their value and impact. But at the same time, we have to be flexible to grow, to see how by incorporating those tools, what value added we are bringing to the equation so that we can do it. And I would say that from that perspective, understanding the complexity, we are never going to be able to compete with computers in the processing power to kind of check with relationships. But we are very good on talking at abstraction, things that are ill-defined, complex. So that skill to be very comfortable in ill-defined problems, ill-defined context. I think that's something that we should all be striving to. The days in which you just need to like drill down to a specific skill, which is still very valuable, but now tools are coming and helping you out in those skills. But being able to navigate that intersection where it is unclear what is meant and what is going to do, be able to reduce complexity by looking at what it is, but also what it could be, I think is very important. So in academia, we should focus more on spending more time in reflection, knowing calculations and broad, sometimes memorization, but really trying to say, what does this mean? How does this work? How does it connect? What will happen if I do this? Trying to look at those scenario planning and trying to see what is out there. What are some of the differences? I think in corporations, we need to start always be looking at how the work that we're doing are impacting the communities, how we add in value, how to listen to them and to try to understand what they really mean. Sometimes you may hear a sentence but you have heard that saying that reading between the lines, what are really they're trying to say, and then really use the tools help you with the work. But at the end of the day, even with the tools, we can never delegate our responsibility and accountability. The tool can tell you very precise numbers, very precise schemas, but at the end of the day, you are the one that have to say, yeah, this makes sense. This is what I need. And so you can never delegate that professional responsibility to put forward what you think it will be best for your designs, for your construction projects, but embrace the tools and learn how to use it and how to maximize their value and impact.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I think that the tools are just that they're a tool that we can utilize, but they're not meant to replace, us as a civil engineer, our knowledge, our moral responsibilities, right? Our ethics and all of those things. But with those tools, we may be able to do more and tackle some of these challenges. We just have to have a good balance of how we can use these things, which I think is really important. So, Dr. Peña-Mora, you've been very involved in academia, as you mentioned to us, and with different institutions. We know that civil engineering education is really evolving to prepare, future leaders for all these global challenges that we've just kind of mentioned here. How do you see kind of the engineering education adapting, and what are some of the changes that you think that they're going to be looking to make to help engineers evolve as we move forward? What are you seeing from your side of things?
I think it's a certain way we are going back almost to the basics, kind of looking at the Socratic method in which you have, the pupils and the teacher, and you interact and you question and kind of go back and forth on what does that mean, how does that works, and how do you actually use it. And I think we have to integrate more. As you can recall, education has been trying to get, for lack of better word, more efficient. And as more efficient, the lecture method kind of came about in which you have one professor for, I don't know, 200, 300, 500, 1,000 students. That's a very efficient way to transmit knowledge. And I think when we were looking to transmit knowledge, that's a pretty good efficient. Now, is that what we need at this time? I do not believe so. I think it's not the transmission of knowledge, it's the internalization of knowledge. How do you internalize what you have learned? How you make connections that goes beyond of what you have been explained to really see beyond. And that requires reflection, that requires dialogue, that requires debate, and even in topics of engineering, which sometimes we don't associate it. We associate it more with the humanities areas. But I would say, if you are looking at a retention wall or slope stabilization, there could be some issues like, why do I use this? Why do I use this method? Why do I use this approach? Like, for example, I always put an example to my students when I said, like, I have a problem, okay? And that problem is I have an area of body of water that I need to cross. Okay. I need to go from this area of the cliff to this other area across. What would you think? And how do I do that? And you can imagine that everybody immediately says a bridge. Okay. Immediately they think, okay, I need to cross this span. I need a bridge. And some others will say a tunnel. And, you will look at a tunnel. And some others will say, wait a second, what about if we put a ferry and we can go from this point to the other point with a ferry? And very few people think beyond that. And sometimes I pose the question, what about if we use a catapult and actually we make it a thrill ride? You still can cross the water and you can actually have one person being thrown from one place to another. So there are different ways. And I think those debates, those insights becomes very important. I think we have to allow more time for that. It may not be efficient because, again, those discussions, those conversations, but at the end of the day, you want your students to come out with a deep understanding of the issues, but most importantly, to build connections between the knowledge that they have that are not as easy to see algorithmically, but it's more looking at the abstract level.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that having some of those qualitative components of the education where you can have discussions, and I mean that's the one thing that's great about civil engineering is there's not one solution to a problem, right? There's many, and having constructive conversations and brainstorming I think is an important part of civil engineering, and we need to continue to, help students to be able to think in different ways and collaborate with others, which I think is really important. And one other thing I'll just say about ASCE is ASCE has launched a lot of different initiatives like the Future World Vision, the Mega City 2070, right? All these different programs that allow us to continue to build up civil engineers and help civil engineers to think about the future and innovate and how are we going to handle these challenges. And that's why, ASCE is such a great organization. And if you're not a member, you should definitely check out asce.org and think about becoming a member. And what I will say also is that if you are a member, you should become a more active member. Most of the people that I've talked to at ASCE, including myself, had a more rewarding experience once they got on a committee or they volunteered to help out at a conference, because that's when you're able to meet other people and really connect and really make an impact yourself. So maybe you're listening to this and because you wanted to hear Dr. Peña-Mora because you're a longtime member, but maybe you haven't got active yet, right? So I really challenge you to volunteer in some way, shape, or form. Go to an event. When you do that, I think it really transforms your experience, and it's really going to make your career more rewarding. In my experience.
I will agree. And let me tell you, if you look at ASE, there is almost anything for anybody. In terms of, it's not only the activities that you can get involved in your location with our branches and sections, but also with our institute. We have 9 institutes that goes from the geotechnical to the structural to the utilities to the transportation to the construction, as well as the innovative technologies of the future, like we have been talking, the artificial intelligence and the like. And I think exploring those conversations, bring up to date the latest technology and the latest information, but most importantly, being able to have a group that understand you and have similar interests and wanted to impact society in a positive way. I will second what you're saying. Get involved, be participant of those conversations, and you will see that your involvement does have real results.
Absolutely. All right. So as we kind of move towards the end of our time here with Dr. Peña-Mora, what we're going to do is we're going to transition into our civil engineering hot seat, which we call it. And I'm going to ask Dr. Peña-Mora kind of a rapid round of short questions to give you a glimpse into some of the habits and insights that has helped him to shape his career. You ready for this, Dr. Peña-Mora?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So my first question is, do you have any specific rituals you practice every day? Maybe you have a specific routine in the morning or lunchtime, just something that you do consistently each day that's helped you as a professional.
Let me tell you, I always find that the beginning of the day is very important, and I do have the routine to make sure that when I wake up, I have the time to do everything that I want to organize myself because you have to start the day right in order to finish the end right. So I really believe that taking that extra time to wake up a little bit earlier than what you normally will think that you want to wake up, it can be quite valuable for you to put your mind into the challenges or the activities that you have to do in the day.
That's great. So, has there been maybe one book or one author or one philosophy that you've come across in your career that has stuck with you, that you've really leaned on or that you've used as a leader or as an engineer, something that has been helpful for you, like a framework or a book or an author?
I think, the book in terms of the habits of a good leader, I think these are very important because it goes back to the notion of what you need to do. And remember, there are different books in the habits that are very important. It can give you some guidance on how to prepare and how to make certain actions a habit
Mm,
instead of being to make it as you go. I think those to me I'm the type of person that I have moved a lot, as I
yeah.
mentioned. And for me, until I find that pattern that I feel comfortable, I struggle. But once I find like the process or I feel very comfortable. So the issue of habits are very important to me.
That's great. Yeah, I think developing those habits as a leader, as a professional
Yeah.
can really be
Mm.
important. So, how about thinking back on some of your managers in your career, right? And you don't have to name any names, but if you
Yes.
think about like your favorite manager or managers, what were some of the things or characteristics that made them your favorite? Just trying to think about what makes for good managers in civil engineering, good leaders in civil engineering.
Well, as you were talking, immediately came to my mind my two advisors. I have two advisors in the PhD, quite different personalities, quite different forms, but each one of them kind of taught me a lot. One was very disciplined and very focused on the delivery, on the process, and the questioning. I can tell you that when I first got to MIT in my first semester, my education was a little bit more of whatever the professor says or the book says is that kind of the law, and you don't really challenge it. To being an educational system that allows for critical thinking and questioning. It took me a long time, and my advisor had only one question for me every time I went to see him. It was like, why? To me, that was like the worst question ever to answer because I say, does it work or doesn't work? It works, that's it, that's why. But no, he
Right.
wanted me to explain my reasoning of why I believe it should work, and that really made me to really think beyond of what is happening to why it's happening. And then my other advisor, incredibly talented and also very very knowledgeable and an expert in his own right, but he was very focused on the human side. And I remember one day that I was in the laboratory and I have been working on a problem that I was not able to find the solution to, and they see a way out. And he came like around 7 and he saw me. Then he came around 9 and he saw me. Then he came around 11 and he saw me in the same laboratory. And then he came like around midnight and said, Feniosky, I just brought your food because I don't think you're leaving the laboratory tonight. So I think he was like so attentive. And so I think that's important. I also have great leaders that have belief in me, that have given me opportunities at the University of Illinois, where I was able to get my first leadership, academic leadership position. A person that was incredibly sweet, incredibly sweet. She was the vice provost, but at the same time, so effective. So you will think that somebody that was so concerned about how people was feeling may not be as effective, but she was incredibly effective. So I have had incredibly role models that balance between delivery and passion and care for people. So I think those three are very the lessons that I learned from incredible people that have mentored me and supported me.
That's great. I think that that's a good lesson is that you're going to have a lot of different people you interact with, but you can learn different things from different people, right? And
Yeah.
kind of take the different ones and utilize them. All right, the last question that I have for you, we call it the civil engineering career elevator advice question. So if you got into an elevator with a young civil engineer, you had about 30 to 40 seconds to give him or her career advice, what would you tell them in that short ride?
The impact that you can have as a civil engineer goes beyond of the bridge that you build or the roadway that you reconstruct. It's the communities that you connect together and that enable them to really, really realize their dreams. So the power of being able to transform the lives of so many people with one project is something that it will be with you forever. So I really recommend you to give a very good hard look at civil engineering as a profession and as a life calling. And so
That's great. Well, once again, Dr. Feniosky Peña-Mora, he was the ASCE national president, just transitioned into the past president. He is also the national dean of the School of Engineering and Sciences at Tecnológico de Monterrey. And Dr. Peña-Mora, thank you so much for taking some time and spending it with us on the Civil Engineering Podcast.
thank you, Anthony. I really appreciate you taking the time and what all you are doing in broadcasting and communicating the importance of our profession, the importance of the ASCE, and the passion that you exhibit in doing it. So thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Dr. Peña-Mora. Please remember you can find the show notes for this episode at civilengineeringpodcast.com. You can also subscribe here on our channel to get future videos. We put out many videos on a regular basis to help civil engineers become better managers and leaders. I'll see you next episode.